When you see nature, what do you think? Is it the untouched wilderness, the caterpillar crawling on a plant in your garden, the untamed weeds between the cracks in the sidewalk, or none of these things? Nature means something different to everyone, but what we want to show you is what it could be. The planet has changed drastically in the past 1,000 years, even in the last 100 years. Many would argue that much of that change is the result of human influence. Some geologists have even said that we have entered a new geological age called the Anthropocene. Looking at the different layers of the Earth, geologists actually classify different epochs based on a difference of layers based on some geological event. Geologists are arguing that human technology and impact have created a new noticeable layer. Regardless of whether the Anthropocene is truly in effect, it is indisputable that humans have changed the Earth drastically. The increased influence of humans. How do humans define nature? Let's take a dive back into history, starting with the Bible. For a long time, nature and wilderness were used in negative context, specifically in the Bible. In the Bible, wilderness was barren. People were banished to the wilderness or suffered trials there or faced temptations. For 1,000 years, wilderness was something to be avoided or tamed. People were not going to national parks to see majestic mountains or walk by lakes to see sparkling waters. Even in the 18th century, words like savage and desolate were used to describe wilderness. Only in the 19th century did this begin to change. In the 19th century, many thinkers and naturalists began to praise nature with spiritual reverence. Henry David Thoreau and John Muir were instigators of this. Thoreau praises contemplation in nature, calling wilderness the preservation of the world. John Muir and Teddy Roosevelt are the fathers of national parks. It goes from being a savage wasteland to an Eden. These thoughts are the precursors to the environmental movements of the later 20th century. Now words like preservation and conservation are thrown around. But what does all this lead towards in humans' definitions of nature now? To figure this out, we asked a few people around campus what their definitions of nature are. What is your definition of nature?
I think of nature as God's creation.
Made by the earth, not by people.
As anything that's not man-made.
What was the time you felt completely a part of nature?
Growing up, we used to go to the Badlands on camping trips.
Times I felt really surrounded by nature since we didn't really see that many people.
Just trees everywhere. And it's really quiet and really pretty.
What was the time you felt isolated from nature?
Being in the city.
Mostly in the cities.
Would you consider walking around campus a walk in nature?
No.
Not really.
A little bit of nature, but then you've got the buildings everywhere.
What these historical and current definitions of nature show is that wilderness is inherently a lack of humans. When it was considered evil, humans did not want to go into the wilderness. But now, the purest, most pristine form of wilderness is a lack of humans. Despite these definitions, humans are responsible for the destruction of much of nature. So is this the right way to think about nature, or are all these definitions and misunderstandings of how humans should interact with nature?
Emma Maris is an environmental writer. Here she is challenging our views of nature. The goal of the TED Talk is to get us to understand that nature is everywhere if we have the eyes to see it. In her TED Talk, Emma Maris goes through how many of us have a backwards idea of what nature is. Nature is beautiful, free of humans. None of our icky impact can be seen. We then think of places like national parks or the Amazon, which are free from humans and worthy of our definition of nature. But she proves these convictions wrong. People have been in the Amazon for thousands of years, living there differently than we do. National parks are some of the most curated spots in the world. As she says, it takes a lot of work to make a place look untouched. So, if our definition of nature is flawed, how can we amend it? Well, Emma Maris says we need to stop removing humans from the scenario. Ecologically, we are a part of the planet too, and have so much influence and impact now. We can use it to our planet and our benefit rather than picking and choosing nature spots and human spots. Emma Maris shows the example of an empty lot that is overgrown with plants. Many might call them weeds, but she contradicts this mode of thinking and instead calls it an ecosystem. There are at least 12 plant species through which other insect life can be supported. This is literally an example of biodiversity on a tiny plot of land in the middle of the city. The TED Talk spoke about how our own kids won't be able to experience nature if the world continues down the path it's going. For me growing up, I practically lived outside and would play outside with my friends and family all day. Being in nature was my whole childhood. It was also a key role in my family's dynamic. Every year my family and I go on trips to national parks because my dad loves to hike, or we go to the beach. Yet my favorite memories from my childhood are playing in my own backyard and messing around with the nature and hiking with my dad in the woods and tree tipping all the dead trees. We as humans are supposed to be involved in the nature, not just spectators of it. Contact with nature can impact health in several capacities. For example, air quality, social connection, physical activity, and stress reduction. All impact our health and is impacted by nature. Air quality affects our lung health. Being active outside is good for our heart and our mental health. Being outside in a public space allows you to meet and connect with people, and nature is calming. Virginia Mason Hospital made some changes to help their cancer patients, some of which were to move their patients to rooms that showed the outdoors and had good views of trees. This small change made a big difference for their patients and improved their patients' ability to get better. Even just being closer to a park improves health. On a physical level, it improves obesity levels and physical activity. On an emotional level, being far from a park links behavioral issues and psychological stress. Urban noise has a big impact on our health. It drowns natural noises, but also many times we listen to the noise way louder than our ears can handle. One study shows that on average, healthier people live near nature. Now, what about the benefits for the Earth? The major contributor to the Earth's health is biodiversity. Biodiversity is essential to our ecosystems. There can be several kinds of diversity coming out of the forms of ecosystem diversity, species diversity, and genetic diversity. If all are present, then an environment will be much more resilient. It is important in the face of climate change and human intervention that environments are biodiverse. Biodiversity acts essentially like a web, where each part is connected to another, strengthening the parts around it. The more the web there is, the stronger the system. If you remove one string, it will not fall apart, but it will slowly become less resilient. If you remove enough, it will eventually fall apart. Biodiversity is important to protect because many parts of nature are protecting us and the planet without us even realizing it. The Earth provides us with everything: food, materials, energy, and more. The environment provides us with so many ecosystem services, one example being the trees providing oxygen. Nature provides us ways to live. If there is a loss of biodiversity, there is a loss of all this. Protecting biodiversity also means protecting humanity. A lack of biodiversity could lead to our planet becoming unlivable. The University of St. Thomas supports the movement of a pollinator path. This is a series of gardens that plant specific plants to attract pollinators as well as other plants for more of aesthetics. For 4 years now, the pollinator path has provided food and habitat for many different pollinators, and it allows students and faculty to study these pollinators, giving them a better understanding of how to support declining pollinator populations. St. Thomas has found the perfect mix of plants to get the maximum number of diverse pollinators throughout the season. The results are promising, showing 8 different species of bees being found on campus, has tripled the amount of bumblebees on campus, and 10 species of butterflies and moths have been identified on campus. Anyone that goes to St. Thomas or visitors can be involved in this by walking these paths and looking at the different pollinators and notice how the environment is a perfect fit for them. This is a great example of humans being involved in nature and helping nature. The best way to get involved in this is to educate yourself and involve yourself in nature by going outside and observing all the beautiful creations nature offers us.